All right, Kitsap County. This week, we're going to go over inspections and inspection responses. Whether you're a buyer or seller, how do you handle the inspection response? And this is Washington State specific. And it's going to be a very general video here to help buyers and sellers with their inspection response. So that's today's topic. If you're a buyer or seller, how do you handle the inspection response to your advantage? How do you think about this? I'm Stephanie Dupuis with Dupuis team at Keller Williams West Sound. All right, so here's the deal. In Washington State, we have a very tight inspection response, very specific. You have 3 chances with your inspection response, and then we cut you off, okay? So here's how it goes. I'm gonna repeat this. The Washington State inspection response, this is, and back up, what we're talking about here is, you get your home inspected, or if you're a seller, the buyer gets the home inspected, and they send the seller a request, okay? They can do one of 2 things. They can say, hey, we're gonna take the house as is, or we'd like the seller to address these issues, okay? I'm gonna really generalize things today, okay? Just to keep things simple, basic, and concise. So, buyer can either say, I'm gonna take it as is, or I'd like these issues addressed. Here's the deal. Buyer and seller have limited response time. The state said you get 3 shots. Buyer gets to make their request, seller can respond, and then buyer and seller must come to agreement, or we terminate. That's how the Washington State form is set up, okay? There's no back and forth, back and forth, back and forth forever. You don't get to negotiate. The state forms, for Washington State real estate, really put a timeline on this. They said, look at, you get 3 shots. 3. Buyer makes a request, seller responds, then buyer and seller have to come to agreement. So think about that. If you're a buyer, that's helpful information. If you're a seller, that's helpful information, okay? So, how you address that really depends on the market. And we're gonna only talk today about hot markets because we're in a hot market and we're in a seller's market. If you're a buyer, sellers are unlikely to, call to the window. So here's what we're recommending for our buyers. What you need to do is think about non-negotiables only, okay? Because you've got 1 shot essentially. So prioritize your list and identify only the non-negotiables, and that's your request. That's your first shot. Seller's gonna respond to the non-negotiables, and then you can come to agreement with the seller, or not, you can terminate. Okay? If you really want that house, you need to make a proposal that's realistic and reasonable to come to agreement with. Now, why only non-negotiables? Because for a number of reasons. There's a couple scenarios. Some people, we get this a lot from buyers and sellers, mostly buyers. If we get at least 1 shot to put stuff out there, why don't we put a couple things out there and just see what happens, see what sticks? Here's why. You always need to put yourself in the seller's shoes, okay? Let's say for your first shot, your first request, you ask the seller for a new roof, an outlet in the kitchen, and caulk the windows, okay? The new roof costs $12,000. The outlet in the kitchen is gonna cost $75. And the caulking the windows, go to Home Depot, get on YouTube, man, right? Welcome to homeownership. So, if I'm the seller, guess what the sellers always do? They go, I don't wanna pay for a roof, but we better give them something. So guess what you're getting for Christmas? You're getting a bottle of caulk and maybe an outlet. Merry Christmas to you. And that stinks because that's not really what you wanted. I bet the roof was the most important thing, right? So if you're making a request and you only have really one shot. Because remember, you make a request, seller responds, and you've got to come to an agreement. If that's the situation, you better just ask for the roof. Ask for the roof, make it very clear and communicate that's the most important item to you. And don't give the seller other options. Don't give them the option to give you the caulk. Don't give them the option to fix the outlet. Because really, you can handle those yourself. Welcome to home ownership, and they're not deal breakers. Only handle the deal breakers. Okay. Get really passionate about this because I think something we really need to focus on when we're in transaction and in life is prioritizing. What are your priorities as a home buyer? Really? Is it the outlet or is it the roof? It's probably the roof. So be very clear throughout a transaction what your priorities are, know what your priorities are, and be able to communicate them with both your realtor and make sure that you're working with somebody who can communicate your priorities to the other party. All right. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them below. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube page. I'm Stephanie Dupuis team at Keller Williams West Sound. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you right here next week.